My name is Robert J. Hurt from Salt Lake City, Utah. My story begins in 1990 in a town called Camas, Utah. At the time, I was living with my live-in girlfriend, fiance. We had been together for quite some time, actually reaching common law marriage status, and our two small children, my daughter of 3 and my newborn son of 3 months. We were having problems, not getting along very well. We were staying with her parents at the time. I had a restraining order out on me. Her and I had got into a couple arguments. The situation was, I guess, slowly progressing into negativity for us. We were in a little separation, and I was doing a lot of drinking alcohol. So, you know, I was just young and just trying to drown my pain, basically, in a way. And I came home from work one day. I worked at a ski resort in Park City. Came home from work one day to find 3 police vehicles sitting in my driveway serving a restraining order on me. I asked them if I could at least get my wallet that was in the house that had $800, my paycheck I just got in it, my ID, my social security card, all that stuff. It was April, time to file taxes. I needed my ID. They told me at the time that I could have nothing from the home, that it was all going to be a domestic dispute and that the judge would need to sort it out at that point. So after being informed of this, I informed the police officers that I was probably nearly 3 times the legal level on being drunk, and they told me either get back in your car right now and drive somewhere safe and we won't mess with you. I, of course, argued with them a little bit, saying, yeah, right, as soon as I get down the road, you guys are going to come pull me over and give me a DUI. They promised me they wouldn't. They said, just get somewhere. Just leave here and go away. We don't care if you're drunk. Just get in your car and drive. So I did. I got in my car and I went to a friend of mine's house with essentially only the clothes on my back. The one set of clothes I had. Everything else was in the home. Well, the next evening, some friends of mine had a keg party up in the mountains, and I was taken to that with them and got really drunk, did some other odds and ends of assorted drugs, and was pretty out of it. And I had myself convinced that if I just went to the house and if I could just talk to my girlfriend and maybe see my kids, I could get some of my clothes back. Even if I could just get my wallet back with my ID and social and everything in it, even without the cash, I just wanted the ID, so I had my driver's license and stuff. Well, when I went there, the property was abandoned. There were no vehicles in the driveway, the house, not a light on in sight. Like I said, I'd lived at the house. I knocked on the front door a few times. I remember it was raining pretty hard. No answer at the door. I wasn't going to break in, so I walked around to the back door of the house to find it unlocked. So I walked into the house, and what I didn't want to do was turn on any lights because the neighbors were well aware of the restraining order I had, and I didn't want, you know, them to call and report me at the residence. So all I wanted to get was my ID and some of my clothes, you know, so I could survive. I was sick of wearing the same clothes for a week. And so I find a box of wood camping matches, the long, you know, Blue Diamond Side Striker wood matches, and I'm going through the house with this book of matches as my light, as my little lantern. And, you know, I'm drunk enough to where when they're burning down, they're burning my fingers and I'm chucking them and lighting a new one. And I'm going through the house and I'm looking for my stuff. Well, I can't find any of my stuff. Come to find out later, they had taken everything of mine and put it in a camp trailer out behind the house, so no wonder I didn't find anything. Well, I had been in the house for quite some time, probably about a half hour, and finally when I couldn't find anything, I double and triple checked, just trying to find at least my wallet. Couldn't find anything. I went back into the first bedroom that I had started in, and apparently one of the matches and the embers in the match had landed on an unmade bed in a bedroom and had sat there and smoldered while I was searching throughout the rest of the house for my things. And by the time I came into that room, the room was full of smoke, and there was a little pile of flames right in the center of her bed, about a foot or 2 high. The first thing I could think to do was just to smother it out. So there was a giant American flag tapestry hanging on the wall. It was probably 100 years old. It was ancient. I just ripped it off the wall and wound it around my hands and tried to smother the fire out in the middle of the bed. The second I did that, that brittle material just burst into flames around my arms, burning all the hair off my arms and face and everything else, and I shook it off me. By the time I got it off me, the curtain was on fire, the wall and the ceiling were on fire, and the fire was spreading faster than I could do anything about. I remember the blackness in the corner of my eyes coming in. I was passing out from smoke inhalation. So I dropped to the floor. I crawled out of the house. And sometimes I think back and realize exactly how lucky I was to make it out of that house. So I left the home and I went to my friend's house drunk and passed out right in the middle of his front room floor. The next thing I remember is police picking me up off the floor, starting to ask me all kinds of questions, threatening me with attempted homicide. And I told them I had no idea what they were talking about. I had tried to kill no one, you know. I did admit to them that I had gone to the home trying to retrieve my personal things. And as soon as I admitted that to them, I was in handcuffs and on my way to jail, charged with attempted murder, first-degree felony, 5 to life aggravated arson, and a second-degree felony aggravated burglary for just going into the house with some kind of felony intent. Well, I'm in jail awaiting, you know, further developments in the case, and they send me a public defender, and this man named Elliot Levine, and he comes up and he talks to me for like 5 minutes. Really, I couldn't get 2 words in edgewise with the guy, and he was out the door, and I really didn't know anything more after he left than I did before he got there. And now I'm looking at a life sentence. And I've talked to this man for 5 minutes, and my future, my life, my freedom is in his hands, you know. So upon initially not liking the guy, I petitioned the judge asking for a change of counsel, which under my impression was supposed to be my right. I was supposed to be able to request different counsel if I had conflict with the counsel they provided, which I did, which the judge then explained to me, we do not have the ability or the financial means to just give you another lawyer. So I was stuck with this lawyer. So he comes to me and he tries to get me to sign a plea bargain for 1 second-degree felony, 1 to 15, just regular arson charge. But then tells me, but you're guilty of no felonies. What you did, starting this accidental fire, going in the house, even though you violated your restraining order, is a misdemeanor. The fire that you started inside the house, being accidental, which you've never lied about, you've admitted to it all along, is also a Class A misdemeanor. So the most you're guilty of is a Class A misdemeanor. Do not take their offer for the 1 to 15 second-degree felony. We'll take it to trial, we'll win. He's the lawyer that's basically forced on me. I have nothing to do but rely on his expertise. I'm extremely naive, extremely young. I know nothing of the law system at that time, you know. So I do as he suggests and we go to trial. During my trial, there were several procedural misconducts during the trial errors, the judge allowing evidence into trial that should have never been allowed, the people communicating about the trial in the hallways precisely as the judge had instructed them not to. The judge was even informed that people were talking about the case out in the hallway and stuff and did nothing about it. He just swept it all under the carpet. He didn't want to hear anything about it. There's, you know, was some pretty precise criminal science that went into it with the fire investigators and stuff. The state of Utah hires a fire investigator who comes in there and says he sees resemblances of some kind of explosive or liquid accelerant used in starting this fire, which is what makes it such a serious crime, an aggravated first-degree 5 to life crime, because of the danger of the explosive or the accelerant hurting someone. The one good thing that my lawyer did do was he hired a fire investigator out of Oakland, California, a guy who had been a fire investigator for 25 years. He got on the stand and he testified that he came to the jail and he interviewed me. Then he went to the crime scene to investigate the crime scene. He came back, he told the jury that there is no way that I could have told him what I told him during the interview, knowing what he would find at the crime scene in his own investigation, had I not been telling him the exact truth, which I had been doing the whole time. I admitted to accidentally starting the fire. That was not good enough for them, you know. They wanted the felony charges. The misdemeanor charges they were not going to let me plead to, which I would have pled to had they given me the chance. I was guilty of it. I would have pled to what I was guilty of, the Class A misdemeanor. Instead, I go to trial. My lawyer is completely ineffective. He gets me convicted of the first-degree 5 to life felony, aggravated arson charge, and the second-degree 1 to 15 felony, burglary charge. And off I go to prison as he's telling me, patting me on my back on the way out the door, don't worry, we'll beat it on appeal. So he files an appeal on my account, which is completely convoluted and has nothing to do with the actual appealable elements of my crime. They took my clothes and they sent them to the state crime lab, stating that had there been an explosive or liquid accelerant used during this fire, there was a 99.9% chance that some residue from this material would have been found on my clothes. The results from the state crime lab were completely negative. Nothing. As I had told him, there was no liquid accelerant used, there was no explosive, it was a box of matches, So we go, and I'm sitting in prison, and about a year later, I get a newspaper article from my mother, which, to tell you the truth, really didn't shock me all that much, and it was concerning my public defender, Elliot Levine. And during the time that he was handling my case, he was also handling other cases for the state simultaneously. Well, there was a group of 5 guys who had the money, who put together a class action lawsuit against Elliot Levine for ineffective assistance of counsel. These 5 guys won their lawsuit, had their charges overturned, and were released from incarceration. All of these guys' cases being handled simultaneously as mine. So if he was ineffective for all of those people, obviously he was ineffective for me. The state itself determined so and disbarred him from practicing law. The state was so negligent that they didn't even look back into his record and undo the wrongs that had been done. All they cared about was that they had the conviction. And during the time that I was in prison, I was informed and warned by people that I did not want to fight the system from inside the system. I did not want to fight the system, not even still being under the supervision of the Department of Corrections, where they could pull me back into prison for the tiniest violation at any time they wanted. And with a 5 to life, it is a life sentence. They can keep you forever. During this time, I saw men murdered, raped, stabbed to death, stuff that most people will never understand. They'll never comprehend the reality of the things I've seen and heard and lived through that have changed me completely as a person and make my life insufferable sometimes, with the anxiety attacks, the post-traumatic stress, the depression, the total disbelief in justice. I'm at the point now where them just sweeping it all under the carpet and just letting my convictions stand, as the days go by, gets more and more and more of a revolt inside of me, because no matter what happens, you can't put a price on what they took from me. They took my children from me. They took my children's lives, raising my own children from me. They took family members of mine dying that I could not spend their last days with them. They took my life from me for 20 years. You may not think that's everything, but when you're 21 years old and you have your whole life in front of you and 20 years of your life is taken, you'll begin to understand what a huge loss it is. Every day that I sat incarcerated, my loved ones, my family, my children, my mother, my grandmother, they were incarcerated with me. They were there, they hurt, they felt the pain from it. All because I was wrongly convicted of 2 felonies that I did not commit. It wasn't good enough for them that I admitted what I had done. They had to make it worse than it was and get the felony convictions so they could get their money every year for the government while I was in prison. My belief at this point is changed. When I was a young child, I believed, as I grew up, that justice would always prevail, that the right thing would always come to the surface, that karma was true, and if you did tell the truth would set you free. In my case, the truth did not set me free. All it did was reinforce to me that justice is only for those who can afford it.